Right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Neurodivergent Wednesday again, and the next in the series of topics. So this morning's topic is following on from last week, which was about using your visual skills for visualizing numbers. And so now we're going to do using your visual skills for even more about visualizing numbers. So that was a very basic last week of we can all visualize numbers. We just have to learn how to do it. And once we've got the trick, then we can do more complicated things. And if you look at that little chap there in the corner of my screen, basically, whatever you can write on a piece of paper, which might be 3 plus 2 in brackets times 5 equals 25, whatever you can, if you can write something on a piece of paper like that, then you can use it in your visual memory. And so what we're doing is going through a few more things that anything you can write down you can do. First thing I should have said to you before anything else, in case anybody's stressed about maths, please get grounded, please breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, right down into your belly, and just relax and hope to get grounded fully in your body. The first one I wanted to talk to you about this week is measurements. Lots of people have no idea what measurements are. Like, how long is your bed? It's about 2 meters, something like that, 6 foot. But if you ask the average child, probably not a clue. How long is your bedroom? Or how large is your room? So what you do there, and this is great fun, you get tape measures out. You start measuring the walls. And so you get more and more information. So sort of it's like reference information so that you know approximately how big the room is. How long is a pencil? You know, if I pick up a measure here, how long is a pencil? It's about 5 inches, something like that. Or 10, 12 centimeters, something like that. And basically, you invest in a tape measure and you start measuring things. The next thing you can do is start checking out how much things weigh to give you some more reference experiences. What does an apple weigh? What does a bag of potatoes weigh? Etc. And the reason for doing this is that when you do a calculation that you've been asked to do in math, you've got some reference experience that you know what the answer is likely to be. So if you end up with an answer to an apple weighs 2 kilograms, for example, that's not likely to be right. I think apples weigh something like about 150 grams, something like that. So you want something in your mind's eye that you can actually go back to and go, that doesn't sound right, I better do that again. What's the volume of a milk carton? We probably all know it's 1 litre. Do the kids know it's 1 litre? And if they pour out a glass, how much of a litre is that? And so there's lots of things like that, and it's a big fun thing to do. You can measure the garden, you can check on the size of a football pitch and find out how many gardens you can put in a football pitch. You can do all sorts of silly things like that. One of the things about what we're going through at the moment is it's a great opportunity for doing different things. And so start measuring things. I seem to remember before we had social isolation, I think it was Alison actually, one of the practitioners, who had the kids all measuring the size of the classroom. And they all had tape measures and they were all lined up next to each other. They thought it was absolutely great fun to find out how big the classroom was. So that's one really useful trick, is get some reference numbers into your brain of approximately how big things are, how much they weigh, what the content is, things like that. It brings numbers to life as well. That's what I like about it. Doubling and halving. Now, this is a picture of fried eggs and chips. And so what we have here is a fried egg and chips. If you double that, you've got 2 fried eggs and lots more chips. So then you go into halving things. You've got 2 fried eggs and lots of chips. If you halve that, you've got 1 fried egg and chips. If you halve that, you're going to have trouble because you've got to cut an egg, fried egg in half, and you've got a few chips. So if you can make it anything real for these kids, it's actually much better. And it could be pieces of oranges, it could be chairs, it could be beds, it could be anything. Just make it real for them as to what doubling and halving looks like, which is a really good precursor to moving on to fractions. Fractions. I'm going to tell you a story about pizzas. First of all, there was a whole pizza, top right-hand corner of the page. And it was just out of the oven and ready to eat. And 2 people wanted to eat it. So they cut it down the middle. So we've now got 2 half pizzas. Each half had a life of its own. They were no longer connected to each other. One half was put on a square plate with some salad, and the other half was put on a round plate all alone. So half plus a half equals a whole, or half plus a half equals a whole in digits. So that's all really very simple, and is a good place to start with even really young children. You know, if you're having a pizza for dinner, you can start talking about who's going to have which half, and are they going to have the bigger half or the smaller half, whatever. Then we move on to fractions and get slightly more complicated. So let's cut the pizza divided up between 4 people. So we've now got a quarter plus a quarter plus a quarter plus a quarter equals 1. And if we take 2 of those quarters, it's quite obvious that they make a half. And if we take 1 piece away, we've got 3 quarters. So we've got 3 quarters left, and we've got 1 quarter over. So we can now start doing things like subtraction. So we've got 1 minus a quarter is 3 quarters. So you're starting to get children to see the pattern there. All the pieces are just a quarter size. And if you add up 3 of them, you get 3 quarters. You've got 1 of them, you get 1 quarter. If you've got 2 of them, you get 2 quarters, and 2 quarters is what, a half. So you're making all this incredibly visual for our incredibly visual learners. Now you can go really exciting and cut it into 8 pieces. And you can do a little bit more complicated maths with that. You cut it into 8, so each piece is an 8th, and 3 pieces is 3/8, and 4 pieces is 4/8. And what do we know about 4/8? That's also 1/2 when we put all the bits together. And it's also half of the whole pizza, and that's exactly what fractions are like. Now, if you want a bit of a less messy idea of doing this, take a square piece of paper and start cutting it up into 4, or folding it into 4, or doing it diagonally or square, whichever way you fancy, and it'll always come out that it comes back to this very basic thing about pizzas. Or you can have cakes, or whatever you like. Biscuits, perhaps. Biscuits are a bit more naughty because they don't tend to break up terribly well. Now we've got to just dial into percentages. Percentages. Something else you need to know about that quarter. It's sometimes called 25%, or in decimals it's called 0.25. So how does all that happen? The whole is 100%. So when you cut up 100% into 4 equal parts, you get 25%. It's the same principle as pizzas. And when you divide 1 into 4 equal parts, you get 0.25. So those are, and you can just play around with these things, however way you like for your child, or for yourself for that matter, and start to explore them. And that's all really, I mean, percentages and fractions do start to panic people. And really, it's very simple when you think about it visually. Thank you for joining me. In 10 minutes, we've learnt about, what have we learnt about? Fractions. We learnt about measurements, first of all. What can measurements, how easy can you make measurements? Then we did doubling and halving. Then we did fractions and percentages. And so those are just some really simple skills. If you want to learn more about it, do have a look at empoweringlearning.co.uk. I'm a health and learning coach, and you'll find loads more information there.